Welcome, Masters, to today's session on the magnificent wisdom given by Harold Percival through his book Thinking and Destiny. I am S.K. Rajan here, giving this contents contained in the book. I am accompanied by another meditator, Purnima, a past life therapist and a tarot card reader, to share her wisdom after we read this book. Today's topic is Thinking the Way to Conscious Immortality. But I think it will be in the fitness of things that we understand what consciousness is, because Percival very often in his book refers to a quality that each one of us should have, that is being conscious of consciousness. So, the definition given by this great author is: consciousness is the presence in all things by which each thing is conscious in the degree in which it is conscious as what or of what it is or does. As a word, it is the adjective conscious developed into a noun by the suffix ness. It is a word unique in language. It has no synonyms and its meaning extends beyond human comprehension. Consciousness is beginningless and endless. It is indivisible, without parts, qualities, states, attributes, or limitations. Yet, everything from the least to the greatest, in and beyond, time and space, is dependent on it to be and to do.
Hello, friends, masters, and gods. Let us see what Mr. Percival has told about consciousness. So he says it is beginningless and endless. It is there in every part of this universe. There is no bar to it. Every part of this universe has consciousness. So it is very difficult to put it in words. That's why he says it doesn't have synonyms. And this is what I gathered from this paragraph. I think we will go on to read a little more of what consciousness is.
Its presence in every unit of nature and beyond nature enables all things and beings to be conscious as what or of what they are and are to do, to be aware and conscious of all other things and beings, and to progress in continuing higher degrees of being conscious towards the only one ultimate reality, and that is consciousness. Consciousness is another mystery, the greatest and most profound of all mysteries. The word consciousness is unique. It is a coined English word. Its equivalent does not appear in other languages. Its all important value and meaning are not, however, appreciated. This will be seen in the uses that the word is made to serve. To give some common examples of its misuse, it is heard in such expressions as my consciousness and one's consciousness, and in such as animal consciousness, human consciousness, physical, psychic, cosmic, and other kinds of consciousness. And it is described as normal consciousness, and greater and deeper, and higher and lower, inner and outer consciousness, and full and partial consciousness. Mention is also heard of the beginnings of consciousness and of a change of consciousness. One hears people say that they have experienced or caused a growth or an extension or an expansion of consciousness. A very common misuse of the word is in such phrases as to lose consciousness, to hold consciousness, to regain consciousness, and develop consciousness. And one hears further of various states and planes and degrees and conditions of consciousness. Consciousness is too great to be thus qualified, limited, or prescribed. Out of regard for this fact, this book makes use of the phrase to be conscious of, or as, or in a certain degree of being conscious. Consciousness is the ultimate, the final reality. Consciousness is that by the presence of which all things are conscious. Mystery of all mysteries, it is beyond comprehension. Without it, nothing can be conscious. No one could think, no being, no entity, no force, no unit could perform any function. Yet, consciousness itself performs no function. It does not act in any way, it is a presence everywhere. And it is because of its presence that all things are conscious in whatever degree they are conscious. Consciousness is not a cause, it cannot be moved or used or in any way affected by anything. Consciousness is not the result of anything, nor does it depend on anything. It does not increase or diminish, expand, extend, contract, or change, or vary in any way. Although there are countless degrees in being conscious, there are no degrees of consciousness. No planes, no states, no grades, divisions, or variations of any sort. It is the same everywhere and in all things, from a primordial unit, nature unit to the supreme intelligence. Consciousness has no properties, no qualities, no attributes. It does not possess. It cannot be possessed. Consciousness never began. It cannot cease to be, and consciousness is.
Here, Percival has told us much more of consciousness. It is very difficult to be put in words what consciousness is, because if we try to put it, we will be making it smaller, whereas actual consciousness is way greater than what can be put in words. He says the each unit, the primordial unit to the highest supreme intelligence has consciousness, and the degree of being conscious of it is the only degree, the only demarcation that we can understand from the primordial unit to the supreme intelligence. Only that degree of being conscious varies. So that is the only thing, and it is present everywhere. Consciousness is present everywhere. It cannot cease to exist. It was beginningless, endless. So all this is what Mr. Percival has tried to explain to us. But there are lots of there are many people who use the term consciousness very in a limited way. It is not very, it should not be used that way. So all that we have seen today in this paragraph.
Yeah, I would like to add that in terms of what we have understood from various spiritual authors, particularly regarding the law of consciousness, every one of us knows that there is consciousness in everything that we know of, everything that we see. So that explains why there is consciousness in minerals, there is consciousness in plants and animals and the human kingdom too. And it is in terms of the degrees of consciousness or the amount of consciousness that is there in each of these elements that we decide how well they will cooperate with us and how well we can understand them. But the fact remains, they have consciousness, and so it is incumbent upon us as spiritual human beings to protect each of these elements which are having consciousness to whatever degree it may be. So, over we continue with this subject of thinking the way to conscious immortality. the system of thinking without creating destiny. And that is what Percival wants us to do. By this system, one may train himself to think without creating thoughts, that is, destiny. The system will aid him in knowing his triune self and possibly in becoming conscious of consciousness. The system is concerned with training the feeling mind and the desire mind to control the body mind, and by control of the body mind to control the senses, instead of allowing the senses to control the body mind and thereby to control the minds of feeling and desire. By training oneself how to feel, what to desire, and how to think, the body will be trained at the same time. By this system, one may locate and find the bearings of the portion of the doer dwelling in his body. If and while he does this, changes will be brought about in the body. Diseases will disappear in their proper order, and the body will become sound and responsive and efficient. This system is not concerned with acquiring health merely to have health and to be free from pain, discomfort, and impediments. Nor is it concerned with acquiring possessions, fame, power, or even a competence. Health and possessions will come as one develops himself according to this system, but they are only incidental. Those who seek health should acquire it with the aid of intentional lung breathing, by proper posture, carriage, eating, and exercise, by temperance in sleeping and the marriage relation, and by kind and considerate feeling towards others. Those who seek possessions should acquire them by honest work and thrift. This system is not for those whose particular purpose is to seek clairvoyance, thought reading, power over others, control of elementals, and the rest of what they call occultism. Occultism is concerned with the operations of nature and with the control and operations of nature forces. This system is concerned above all with understanding the triune self and the light of the intelligence, and with the practice of self control and self government. By self control and self government, nature will be controlled and protected.
So, yes, friends, so from this beautiful paragraph and the heading as it is given, Thinking the Conscious Way to Immortality. So, again, here Mr. Percival says that just by thinking we can change, we can get to conscious immortality, but the way that he has given is only for people, it should be followed in every aspect of our life, not just this is not the way for people who want to have the occult powers or who want to do occultism and
Or power over others.
or power over others or any kind of psychic abilities. That it is not, this way is not for them, but it is this way is for others who want to attain conscious immortality, and the way is by controlling our mind, that is control as in having conscious awareness about our thinking and also our feeling and desiring. Whenever we have the feelings and desires, we should have one thought before achieving the feelings or getting on to satisfying our feelings or desires. We should give a thought over it, and we should have a control over our feelings and desires, so that we will be able to have complete control over our body also, and also our mind, and that is the way to conscious immortality, is what Percival says here. And he also mentions that with conscious lung breathing, that is we should this is very easy for all the meditators to do, because we know how to observe and we have been practicing that from such a long time. So even for the beginners, you can be with your breath and do conscious lung breathing, and the way to conscious immortality can be attained with regular practice of these things, and also the control over our body. We can get to conscious immortality.
I would like to add something here which he has told, that is, he says, those who seek health should acquire it with the aid of intentional lung breathing by proper posture, carriage, eating, and exercise. Intentional lung breathing, and by temperance in sleeping and marriage relation, and by kind and considerate feeling towards others. So, obviously, from the view of our 18 principles which have been enunciated under the PSSM movement, it is very obvious that when he mentions about intentional lung breathing, it is nothing but anapanasati, that is observance of the breathing, that is in breathing and out breathing, how we do it properly, proper posture, because there is a posture, sukhasthira asana, that is what we have prescribed, and eating, of course, what is suitable for the body, and sattvic food, of course, is what is suitable for the body. Eating and exercise. By temperance and sleeping means sleeping only to the extent of your body's requirements and not more than that. And marriage relation, he means proper relations between the partners in the marriage, and by kind and considerate feeling towards others. That explains the need for compassion in our day to day lives. So, all this has been contained by or mentioned by Percival in a very subtle manner, and these are all what we are already following as members of the PSSM, and we are proud that we are also in complete alignment with what Harold Percival has been saying and advising us.
So, friends, I would like to add one other point here. He says, being kind and considerate of the feelings of others. That also says that we have to follow vegetarian food, that is plant-based food. We have to be considerate of the pain the animal goes through, because we should not be having that, and that's mentioned in the 18 principles as told by Mr. Rajan. So we are following all of what is given by Percival, but some other things here for the people who are already in alignment with PSSM principles are you should have conscious awareness over your thinking all the time, and giving a thought before getting your feelings and desires fulfilled.
This system is for one who seeks to know himself as the triune self in the fullness of the light of the intelligence. Other systems deal with nature and the doer, undefined and undistinguished. This system identifies and distinguishes the doer from nature and shows the relations and possibilities of each. It shows to the embodied doer a way out of slavery to nature into the freedom and wholeness of its own triune self in the light of the intelligence. There is no history connected with this system. Its origin is in being conscious of consciousness. The system, as a course of training oneself in thinking and feeling and desiring, is composed of exertions by the portion of the doer in the body and by intentional breathing and thinking. The system is directly connected with the efforts of the doer towards the right development of itself and thus furnishing higher types of for nature to work through. The system is more subtly connected with being conscious as the doer and having enough knowledge to think without creating thoughts. That is, thinking without being attached to the objects about which one thinks.
So beautifully put again by Master Percival. So here he says that thinking without creating more thoughts, here that means creating thinking without creating destiny means creating more and more thoughts. See, what happens is when we generally sit and think, one thought is connected to another, and we keep having those thoughts again and again. It's a kind of a chain which we are unable to break free from. So here what he says is we should have only one thought, and but the actual meaning of this is also given in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is in one sloka he says that when we have a thought, we should not be attached to the results of the thought, or even action for that matter. When we do some thought, or give a thought, or do an action, we should not be attached to the results. And the sloka goes like this: karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur burma te sangyotsa karmani. This is what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, and that's exactly what Mr. Percival has given. Thinking without creating more thoughts or more destiny. So that is what Krishna also has said. So that is what we should keep in mind. Never be attached to the results of your thoughts or actions.
One who practices this system need not depend upon any other person than himself. His own thinker and knower will teach him as he gradually becomes conscious of them. Certainly, he may communicate, if he wishes, with anyone about it. He obtains some information from the system and his experience with it, but it is he who must furnish the light and become conscious of what the light shows as he goes on. He may be furthered by his own past thoughts, by his feelings, his desires, the people he meets, the matter he reads, or he may be hindered by any of these. His progress depends upon himself, on his intelligent, silent persistence in following this system. This must be so if he is to be self controlled and self governed.
So he says when we have that quality in ourselves, that is, if we are not attached to the results, we can master ourselves and become a Buddha. That's what Percival says here. So he gives more ways to do that, and that is what he is meaning here.
I would add that he had mentioned earlier self control, self governance. Self governance means regulating your own thoughts, words, and actions so that you mean good and do good wherever and whenever possible. There's also one more thing with the word self, that is self knowledge. So, self knowledge also is to be gained, and that self knowledge can be gained once you know the art of being conscious of consciousness. So, further on, I will read: there is no limit to what one may attain by following this system. The limitations, if any, are in himself, not in the system, which leads to thinking without handicaps, and so to the knowledge of himself as the doer of his triune self and of his intelligence. He can, by this system, desire, breathe, feel, and think so that he himself will be the way to all beyond. One who follows this system should have an understanding of the difference between himself and nature. He must understand the relation of himself to nature as the outside universe and to nature as his body. He must understand the aya and the breath form and their relation to each other, to nature and to himself. He must understand what the doer in the body is and what it does, and what is the relation of himself as the doer to his triune self and to his intelligence.
Friends, here Percival goes on to say that we should have right understanding as told by the Buddha in the Eightfold Path. We should have understanding of everything, the connection between us and nature, our body and the nature, and the connection between our body with our cells, the nature unit within us. So many things are there. We should, as and when we understand that, we will become more and more aware, that is, being conscious of consciousness.
Right now, we have completed how we can gain conscious immortality by this series of actions which Percival has advised us to do, and I am sure it will be up to us to carry out whatever he does so that we are able to go into higher and higher levels of spirituality. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.